Yeah.
Oh, those are just.
Jesse, do you mind if I use these for my?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Always that's arts and crafts. You gotta get a new one. Yeah, just get a new one.
don't look it up. I think I'm getting an idea what it is.
Just so we're clear,
I don't really think that.
especially this iPad. She's trying to use this now to eliminate the competition.
You're ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so everyone, we're gonna get ready.
Yeah.
Very professional.
All right. Well, okay, I'll let John get set.
Oh, sorry about
No,
that.
no worries. Oh, man.
Whenever you're ready.
Sure. All right, so, good evening, my ninth grade English students. My name is Mr. McCluskey, and today we're going to be looking at teas through the literary lens of character archetypes. So, what an archetype is in the context of literature is a really stereotypical example of a person or thing. And it's perpetuated through time in the context of either, we see it in books, we see it in movies, and we see these characters in everyday life too. In the context of literature, your character archetypes can either be multidimensional or flat characters. And are we all on the same page with those terms? Is anybody unaware of multidimensional and flat characters? And okay, so we're all clear on that. So this will be a little bit of a review. Multidimensional characters are characters that have complex or conflicting psychologies, and then flat characters are just kind of, they only serve one purpose, and they're almost like an obnoxious stereotype of a certain kind of person. And in literature, all of these characters have, all these archetypes have one really tragic flaw or shortcoming that creates conflict with other characters, and so, as a result, moves the story forward. So, this is a list of some archetypes that I think are very obviously found in teas. As we go over each example, I'm sure you can think of which character fits each profile. We have the anti-hero, non-hero, given the vocation of failure, frequently humorous. The example I gave there is Hamlet. I don't know if you're all familiar with that story. But the other example I saw a lot when I was doing my own research on anti-hero was Homer Simpson. So think of that, like totally not an actual heroic person, but still has the intentions to do good. We have the scapegoat, an animal, or more usually a human, whose death in a public ceremony expiates some taint or sin of a community. They're often more powerful in death than in life. Most common example of this, that we would all probably be familiar with, Jesus Christ. We have the boss, the leader of the pack, the go-to person, the solver of problems, maybe overbearing and controlling, competitive, stubborn, aggressive, status-seeking, can be chronically rude. The outcast, isolates, struggles to connect with others, socially inept, avoids conflict, invested in his or her rich inner world only, fears the world, usually intelligent, reliable, and loyally trusted feel. The example I gave there is Ponyboy. It's another one that we've talked about all the time. And then there's the jock or the man's man. This was called a couple of different things, but that's what it comes down to. Masculine in an exaggerated way, rugged, tough, fearful of weakness, adventurous and aggressive, worldly, sexually experienced, ambitious, need to win, risk taker, etc. So I'm sure going through those examples of archetypes, certain characters from Tease all came to your mind instantaneously. I think these profiles are, the main characters in Tease fit these profiles almost to an exactity. Your anti-hero is Sarah, obviously. And like I said before, all of these archetypes have one really tragic flaw in them that creates conflict with the rest of these characters. So the anti-hero, it's the hero that doesn't know why they're there, doesn't want to be there. It's unlike the hero's journey in any other way because of that. So it sets the anti-hero apart from the traditional hero. The scapegoat is obviously Emma here. The scapegoat's the one that that has to suffer because of the mistakes of society. When we go over these in our activity, the scapegoat is actually the only one we're not going to go over because rather than breaking out of the stereotypes of each of these archetypes, Emma kind of plays the role of the scapegoat perfectly. She kind of just perpetuates that stereotype. So we're not going to go over the scapegoat in our activity. The boss is obviously Brielle, controlling, stubborn. These are her tragic flaws. It creates conflict between her and Sarah and everybody else. Everybody knows Sarah is this controlling, aggressive person. We have the outcast, Carmichael, who's really sensitive and insightful, but at the same time maybe too cool for school, sort of, or literally, because he doesn't go to school, so that actually, yeah. And then we have Dylan as the jock. But that could honestly, this archetype could be, I feel like, could be applied to almost any male character in this story. All the male characters are sort of flat characters. They kind of only serve this, the mentality of this sort of like frat boy or jock kind of character. But since we were talking about how archetypes have these one tragic flaw that creates all the conflict between them and the other characters, moving the story forward, at some point in the story, these characters have to be, or they become aware of that one tragic imperfection. So we're going to talk about the theme of atonement or redemption. And we've talked about Tease as a story of revenge, or as a story of identity, or classism, or elitism. But another way of looking at it is just the story of Sarah's redemption. But not just Sarah. We can examine this journey to redemption in either Brielle, Carmichael, Dylan, and even Emma if you want to get much more complicated with it. So I'm going to break you up into 4 groups. So how about we have Lindsay, Danielle, and Priscilla. You guys can do the outcast. I'll get these all out at the same time. John, Jess, and Amanda, you guys can do the man's man. Francie, Casey, and Steph, you can do the boss. And then Eric and Chris, you guys can handle the anti-hero. So I'll go back to the other slide to keep the examples up of each archetype. And what you're going to do here is you have a T-chart on each of these. Oh, okay, thank you. What you're going to do here is I'm passing out a T-chart right now. On one side, you're going to put quotes of how your character embellishes the stereotype of their archetypical character. So those quotes that help them fit that profile, you're more likely to find them in the beginning of the book because they haven't reached that point of redemption yet. They're still perpetuating the stereotypes of this character. On the other side, you can either find quotes or any personal reflections you might have about the stereotypes that this person overcomes or maybe doesn't overcome, you'll put on the right. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here. Okay, so
go back to the slide that has the examples of each archetype and like what their profile is, so you can,
Like not killing
you can
anybody.
keep all of that in mind when you're looking through this.
That might,
Yeah.
because I know, at the end of the day, I didn't kill anybody. And I expect them to be, excited. Or later when she talks about not killing yourself. And she's like, I mean, who doesn't feel like killing themselves in school this week? It's gotta be easier than this, than high school.
You guys know what's going on, it's like they're-
Yes,
Okay, here's the one.
She would also
Here you
speak
go.
for
You-
the
you select.
you just want us to outline how she.
I'm looking for your one that you can't find.
Yeah, on the left side.
Yeah, I don't know
The
what
right
pages
side,
these are.
you wanna look
It
for
goes by
ways that you can
location.
use yourself.
Thank you.
That- Well, Brielle's gonna be a hard one, because she knows she's trying to.
Do you know where they are? You-
So on the right side, you can put quotes of how she, of how she does it, how she only sinks further.
We're looking
Or
at,
if she loses this.
the first chapter is a lot, so it should be like 1 to 2. One or two pages. And it's just like, I guess I'm young for.
Any personal reflection you have, can go on that, right
Alright,
now.
let's read
That's
that.
all that.
Yeah.
They feel like most of us are good at
You guys know what's going on?
Yeah, we're,
I think so, I think we're doing.
Okay. You're just looking for
Might not be
anything.
going the traditional direction that we're aiming for.
Well, the anti-hero is kind of like initially posed right off the bat. That's what makes them the anti-hero. So that's why I thought she kind of played that role.
Just write it.
Just close to the ball, and think to exactly what I want to do. So, we can so that we can make what we're doing work.
I think it was usually nice to
Just whatever we do is fine. Okay. Funny.
page 2.
Okay, let me see.
Just go,
Just
go at it,
'cause-
man.
sorry, I apologize, I didn't mean to be like, give me the book. I just wish that every Kindle book should have the same goddamn page. And it doesn't, where's the new book?
We never said
This might be page 1.
She's like, oh, I'm waiting in line for the text. I was like, oh, he said it.
get your sexy ass to bed.
Well, I don't know if I wrote it down, but
Oh, here we go. Page
You're
2.
sexy.
I didn't kill it. It's just like, it's just such like a matter of fact thing. Like she's proud of herself. She's like, yeah, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so.
And it's kind of like she doesn't just, she's not thinking about that. She's just thinking that she doesn't deserve to be in this situation.
I was just laughing. I was like, I wanted to text him with text.
Okay.
I know the fucking.
That was January. Yeah, I think it was like.
What,
No.
bed? Oh, no, what?
It was earlier than that, you're right.
Is that what we're doing?
I'm gonna find one where it's.
It's the first page of the chapter.
Yeah, it teaches in the high schools.
Yeah, no, I just told them, I don't know if it's local, I don't
Yeah, it's still new.
That's not bad.
Okay, so that's kind of
Yeah.
There's a blast of light. There's a blast of light and sound.
You put that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, so. Yeah, everyone.
Well, that's gonna be like.
What you got? Doing well. It's been a long day. I forgot we had class today because I was in the school.
Oh, what about this?
That's right,
So I was making my lawn. I had to put on my phone.
You have another one?
Kind of. In the chapter for in the chapter October, when she's getting upset that her mom is like jumping on her about stuff. She's like, my mom will want to say something out or whatever, she's really nice to her, and she's basically explaining, immediately finds something that needs improvement. And of course, everything about it needs improvement.
Now,
So it's kind of like, still feeling sorry for herself, but also kind of realizing it's acknowledging.
so I'll just say everything around it.
Yeah, and of course, everything about it needs improvement. And that's, yeah, it's cool.
Some of my friends from college are already
Is on this?
Oh, college?
Yeah.
No, 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 yeah,
Outcast.
I'll just write out something. Alright,
More about her.
Yeah.
okay. So she did that to herself. We weren't the only ones, everyone at school says stuff to her. Alright.
Okay.
It is east and south. So it's
Where's
Lawrence County.
One,
Yeah, everybody's behind us right off.
September.
Literally, my house is like a block full of what exit is that?
This is for this, yeah.
No.
Oh, what would be worth?
Yeah. Oh, he's in
Empty the
37.
parkway.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. No, I just.
That was September, you said?
That was, oh, was it? Oh, it was September, but it went back and forth. It's like in the middle of September.
Because I think that's where she was talking about. That's
That's
what I killed this house.
What is it, what kind of deer breed?
It's, I love it. I actually got to go to the class trip.
That's not really real.
Oh, yeah, no,
I
I
had a
was
whole
wondering if
class
that.
of 15 kids and I had one
Thing
mom.
that's kind of like research, we showcased that when I was sitting out.
Turned around and everyone was going like, but it was cool.
I have no idea. I don't know where you guys are going.
5, 6,
What time do you have? Just
You started at 5:31.
5:31?
I wish you were.
Oh, you had, I thought you had it on a, like a stopwatch, not a countdown
Do you
time.
want to close it with?
Okay, I think we've used enough time on this activity.
I promise I won't assume.
All right, so Priscilla's group, you had the Outcast, which is.
Oh, that was the.
Yeah, saying that.
Oh, all right,
Carmichael,
sorry.
yes, I'm just waiting for everybody to get settled back. All right, so you had the Outcast, which is Carmichael. How does Carmichael play into his stereotypical role as the Outcast, and then how does he redeem himself as the Outcast, if at all?
Well, he starts off when we first meet him, like, he's not really talking to her, he usually doesn't even show up to the summer school classes. He won't like go into detail about himself, he wears a little hat. And then in the end, like, he is the first one to say, like, I'll come over, I'll help you out, and then he's there comforting her when she's crying. And then at the end, like, he's laughing with her little brother, like, they're going to school.
Okay, so he starts off a little pretentious, and then through the development of his character, he becomes a little more open and a little more friendly, right? Okay. So John's group, what archetype did you have again?
We had the man's man.
You had the man's man. All right, Dylan. So how does Dylan perpetuate his stereotype as a jock, and then how does he redeem himself as that, if at all?
So our first quote is a little embarrassing, but I was just thinking about when she was waiting for the text messenger like all night in one scene, and I thought he just said like get your sexy himself to bed or something like that,
Yeah.
you know, so. We censored that one bit, but I thought that showed him being like a typical guy,
Right, this kind of
jock.
hypersexual,
Right. And then Amanda
Frat
had a
boy.
good quote as well.
Yeah, the one, after the first time that they had sex, and then he just like leaves, and there's a blast of light and sound from the hall, and then I am alone.
yeah, he's going like high-fiving his buddies or
Right,
something.
exactly.
Yeah. So did you put anything on the right? Does he break out of this stereotype, and does he, I don't know, maybe start being more mindful of how he treats women, or does he kind of not really learn anything?
We said that he shows a lot of empathy towards Emma, even when she wasn't his girlfriend. He tells Sarah, you know, your girl should be nice to her, she's not that bad.
Mhm. Okay, alright, so there's something, there's a little bit of redemption there. Alright, Steph's group, which one did you have?
The boss.
The boss, alright, so how does Brielle play into being the boss?
Well, we had a few quotes. One was, there's a quote saying that Sarah was her mute sidekick, and she would just stand there. Another one where Brielle always puts words into Sarah's mouth, like, oh, she agrees with me, obviously.
Yeah.
Another one where Brielle calls Emma a bitch, and then Sarah shoves her, so she kind of follows what Brielle does. And then another one towards the end of the book, it's better to be her friend than her enemy.
Alright, so yeah, these are massive character flaws for Brielle. So in the end of the book, does she redeem herself? Does she become aware of these qualities in herself and kind of, you know, rise above any of that, or does she kind of stay the same too?
We didn't think she really redeemed herself, or that her character changed, but her amount of power over the school
Mhm.
kind of changed, and how people, I wouldn't say necessarily in the beginning looked up to her, like they knew who she was, but at the same time, you know, by the end, they don't even kind of respect who she was anymore.
Yeah, Brielle's a tricky one, and for the same reason, that's why I didn't do Emma as the scapegoat, because Emma doesn't really break out of this archetype that she is. She kind of just perpetuates that tragic figure that dies because of society's mistakes and whatnot. All right, anti-hero. You guys are the last one. How is Sarah the anti-hero?
So we got a couple quotes. Right on page 2, she says, she's talking about to the therapist, and she goes, "But I didn't kill anyone," referring to Emma. And then she says, this is on page 128, she's, I believe, talking to the principal. She said, "She did that to herself. We weren't the only ones. Everyone at school said stuff about her. They said stuff about a lot of people." So she's not very conscious of her flaws and how her behaviors influenced Emma.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, no, please, continue.
I was gonna say, she's not really angling for redemption.
Okay.
She's not really aware of it. She says, "But I didn't kill anybody," like that's an accomplishment.
Mhm.
Hey, I didn't kill anybody today, great, I'm a hero, you know, I deserve credit for that.
Right,
And she kind of does start to change as the story goes and
exactly.
moves towards awareness.
So by being the anti-hero, she's kind of posed for seeking redemption immediately. Although, as the anti-hero, she also doesn't really understand why she's there. She doesn't really want to be there, like you said. So by being the anti-hero, she's kind of looking for redemption, although she doesn't really know it right from the beginning. So how does she become more heroic and less anti-hero by the end of the novel?
There's a point where she starts to have little breakthroughs, where she'll, in the same sentence, be complaining about something, but then acknowledging part of the problem. So there's a point where her mom's not even yelling at her, she's thinking about her mom yelling at her and nitpicking on, you know, what she's wearing and what she's doing. And it starts out as a complaint that it ends with, "Everything about me needed improvement." So she's not really admitting that just yet, but it's starting to creep into her consciousness.
All right, very good. All right, class, so what we really did today is we looked at the main theme of T's being redemption through the lens of redemption for all of our main characters through the lens of character archetypes. And you can put an archetype for almost any character in any book. If you wanted to put an archetype for every character in T's, you could. And by being that archetype, there's immediately some need for redemption by fitting that stereotype. So, I hope you all enjoyed today's class. Come us around in the hallways. Have a good night.
See you guys.